Even though Red Dead Redemption 2 spins a pretty straight tale about the dying years of the Wild West and the industrialization of modern American civilization, it's still got plenty of quests, Easter eggs, and locations steeped in the supernatural. Straight away after launch, there were reports that there was some pretty spooky bollocks to find out in the wilderness, but nobody really had any idea how many disturbing little things there would be to uncover. The Old West is full of tall tales as well as real human depravity, and Rockstar have done a fine job of packing all that mythology into their latest masterpiece. While on the one hand that makes for a game that feels rich with detail and history, it also makes for one that manages to scare you silly when you least expect it. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is Red Dead Redemption 2, 13 disturbing secrets and locations you totally missed. Number 13, the Incestuous Dinner Party. It's always a 50-50 gamble when you run into a random shack in Rockstar's latest game. Either it's going to be occupied by friendly enough people or basic bandits who you can easily rob and move on from in less than 5 minutes, or it's going to have some terrifying random encounter laying in wait to completely take you by surprise. One of these seems innocent enough at first though, with a brother and sister sitting out front who invite you to join them for dinner. However, straight away there's a strange sexual connection between the two, as the man tells you to check on the woman upstairs who's getting changed. After that, they invite you to try some of their liquor, never a good idea, which knocks you out and leaves you free to be robbed and dumped in a ditch of dead bodies. I mean, come on, we've all been there. You, of course, head straight back and make them realize they've messed with the wrong outlaw. While searching their house, however, it's hinted that they killed their own parents and buried them in the same ditch they threw you in. Likewise, all through the house you can find family pictures with the faces of said parents stabbed out and discarded. This has got to be like the second worst dinner party I've ever been to. Number 12, zombie fish. Fishing is one of the most peaceful pastimes in Red Dead Redemption 2. On countless occasions, you're invited to take 5 minutes and cast a reel out, whether it's to spend some bonding time with Jack or to catch the many legendary fish scattered throughout the map. Consequently, if you head out to Elysian Pool, there'll be a pretty good legendary for you to catch, but once you've reeled it in, it turns out that the fish is actually zombified. Arthur will comment on the undead creature's appearance, as it's still somehow animated despite having massive chunks taken out of it and rotting. Whether this is just a random detail or a hint at a potential undead nightmare follow-up, please, is anybody's guess. Number 11, the Abomination. You can find some weird things strung up throughout Rockstar's version of the Wild West, however few are quite as unnerving as the mutant hiding in a cabin just west of Van Horn. If you break into this house, you'll find a kind of makeshift laboratory and, far more pressingly, a terrifying man-made creature with horns, a pig's head, and wings on proud display against the far wall. It's striking when you first find it, but it becomes even creepier the more you look at it, as you slowly discover more details and more animals that have been pieced together to form this unholy abomination. Number 10, the Witches Cauldron. There's plenty of weird pagan cults and rituals tucked away across Red Dead Redemption 2's map. However, actual references to proper witchcraft are kept surprisingly minimal. That said, you can stumble across a bona fide witch's cauldron hidden in the forest north of Grizzly's East. The entire setup as well is almost fairy tale-esque, with the entrance to the secret shack feeling like a scene out of Hansel and Gretel, only the Brothers Grimm version rather than the one cleaned up for kids. Make your way into the lair and the cauldron will be bubbling at the back, surrounded by a whole host of other ritual items. Who knows what kind of ungodly spells were performed within these strangely alluring walls. Number 9, the mystery of Emerald Ranch. On the surface, Emerald Ranch looks like any other unassuming little village. Comprised only of a couple houses, a nearby train station, and a fence, you'll have no doubt found yourself travelling through here hundreds of times throughout your journey. All the while being totally oblivious to the sinister secrets lurking behind closed doors. If you listen closely to the dialogue from people you pick up in the nearby area, they'll spout tales of an underbelly hidden in the ranch, daughters trapped in houses, a blood-stained saloon, and old-timers who'll threaten you if you even step foot on their property. Nobody quite knows why Emerald Ranch is this way, but it has all the signs of a storied past. And if you start investigating yourself, it's unnerving to say the least. You'll be able to spot the much discussed daughter pacing in her house at night, while all the boarded up shops give off the feeling of a ghost town waiting to happen. Number 8. Ghost Train. Speaking of metaphorical ghost towns, there are some genuine ghostly sightings that players have reported so far in Red Dead 2, but it's the ghost train that's the most visually impressive. It shows up at about 3 AM, with the most reliable spawn point being in the sign marking the entrance to Lemoyne. There you'll see it take its nightly route, maybe to drop off other ghouls for their own haunting shifts. It's different from the rest of the trains in the game as well, and it could actually be a reference to the ghost train from Final Fantasy VII, considering their visual similarities, making it a double Easter egg. Number 7. Devil Worship. The beauty of Red Dead Redemption 2's open world is that you can just be chilling out by the campfire after a long day of hunting, reading through your journal and enjoying a well-deserved break, only for it to be rudely interrupted by some stark raving lunatic spinning stories about a cursed town invaded by demons that have been stealing dead bodies. Obviously, you need to check this out for yourself, and if you do make it to the town, which turns out to be in Butcher Creek, you'll quickly realize that what you heard wasn't entirely a tall tale. Not only that, but if you're lingering around in the early hours of the morning, you might also stumble across a neon pentagram hidden in a nearby house. Number 6. The Blue Water Marsh Ghost. As mentioned previously, there's plenty of apparitions haunting the Old West in Red Dead 2, but the woman found at night in the Blue Water Marsh is particularly terrifying to catch a glimpse of. If you camp nearby and wait until nightfall, things will quickly start to get eerie. First, you might hear the sound of a woman crying who actually isn't the ghost but someone attempting to spring a trap on fools out in the marsh at night, and if you continue to look around, you should see a glowing apparition in the distance. Get out your binoculars for a closer look at the dead woman, who ups the creep factor by whispering things like, "He never loved her," while she haunts the area. So far, nobody knows just who this woman is, and it's probably for the best that it stays that way. Number 5. The Saint Denis Vampire. The Saint Denis Vampire quest is one of those Easter eggs that's virtually impossible to just stumble across, as it forces you to solve a cryptic mystery in order to get to the bottom of whether there is indeed a supernatural creature sucking the blood from the inhabitants of the city. Throughout the town, you'll find strange messages left scrawled on walls, making references to deaths that Nosferatu is apparently responsible for. After finding all the clues, you should get a pentagram drawn on the map, which gives you another area to search to track the killer down in. Fortunately, all it takes is a bullet to the head, not a stake or silver bullet, to put the vampire down for good. Number 4. The Devil. If you head as far west as possible to a little cave entrance just above Big Valley, you'll be treated to one of the most obtuse secrets in the whole game. Initially just a random abandoned mine, if you keep going deeper and deeper into the darkness, you'll eventually run into none other than the Devil himself. Initially in the shadows, he'll tell you to get lost and find your own cave, warning you that there's nothing but nasty things to find down here. Stick around though, and eventually he will show himself in all of his red-faced, horny glory. Of course, he's not actually the devil, but simply a stranger who's dedicated to transforming himself into one. It's a bit tragic in a way, but it's still creepy as hell. Number 3. Arthur's Lost Knight. Okay, so this is probably the most devastating secret in this entire list. Continuing to prove that going into random shacks is a recipe for disaster, you can find one in Lemoyne that manages to be incredibly disturbing without actually showing anything. Initially, it looks completely run down, but there'll be a man sitting outside who once again invites you in for some food. If you follow him in, he'll knock you out, and as you lose consciousness, you can hear him throw you onto the bed, with the sound effects and sinister overtones all pointing towards the stranger sexually assaulting Arthur while he was out cold. Oof. After being dumped back out in the wild, the character lets out a bewildered, "Oh my lord." Now you don't actually see anything happen, and if you accidentally stumbled into the shack, you might want to pretend that nothing actually did, but it's heavily implied that's not the case. My advice, head straight back there and throw him to the alligators. Number 2. The Time Traveler. Though there's plenty of fetch quests in Rockstar's latest that have you searching for dinosaur bones and legendary fishes, it's geology for beginners, which has you scoping out mountains in order to collect a bunch of rock carvings for a man named Francis Sinclair that's the most difficult to complete without a guide. As you find each one though, you'll be invited to return to Francis's shack, where his father is found dead and his wife is holding a baby in her arms. A baby which has the exact same birthmark as Francis. The implication is that somehow the character used these carvings to go back in time. If you investigate the cabin, you'll see drawings seemingly of the grown-up Francis visiting moments in time, including the construction of the pyramids. Not only that, but it's also implied that his descendant would later go on to start the Scientology standing group in GTA 5, which apparently isn't based on total BS. Number 1. The Man in the Painting. One of the most fondly remembered strangers in the original Red Dead Redemption was the prophetic, top-hat-wearing man with no name. He popped up a few times to talk to John, knowing seemingly everything about his past as well, and test his morals with 3 unexplainable conundrums. He vanishes after that, leading many to believe that he might have actually been the personification of death, considering John's fate. While he doesn't show up in the flesh in the sequel, however, he can be found immortalized on a spooky painting that forms over the course of the game. In Bale Edge, you can find a shack that might belong to this same man, full of paintings and prose etched onto the walls that fans are still trying to decipher. Upon return visits, the painting in the middle will slowly start to be completed, eventually revealing it to bear the same likeness as the strange fellow from the first game. What the hell does all this mean? I don't know, but it's creepy.